Young Rachel, at that time 10 years old, was sleeping over her friend Amy's house. Amy lived on the second floor of her parents' house, just one room down from the stairway. The stairway led to the first and third floor area of the house. Directly next to the stairs was a spare room, which was home to some dusty furniture and an old radio. The radio had the peculiar habit of belching out static every time someone passed by the room. The two friends were playing in Amy's room well into the midnight hour, way past the time they were allowed to be awake. Amy was the kind of person who needed to sleep with the hallway door open, which of course never sat well with Rachel. Doubtless, the ominous darkness of the hallway before them served as a source of ever-mounting paranoia for a child's imagination. Playtime was abruptly ended when the two girls heard the unmistakable sound of footfalls on the third-floor stairway, the same floor Amy's parents were sleeping on. The girls hurried to their beds to escape a firm reprimand from Amy's parents. No sooner did they throw the covers over themselves when they heard the telltale sound of radio static. They waited, expecting that at any moment one of Amy's parents would poke their head in the door and shout at them for being awake at this hour. Minutes ticked past, and that moment never came. Perhaps satisfied that no curfew infraction had taken place, Amy's parents had returned upstairs. Amy seemed convinced of such and hopped out of bed, urging Rachel to do the same. At one point in the evening, Amy expressed the need for a glass of water. When she asked Rachel if she wished to come with her, Rachel declined. It was pitch black in the hallway, and Rachel was no fan of the dark. Undeterred, Amy wandered out into the hall. The buzz of the old radio and the sound of footsteps on stairs announced that Amy's progress towards the downstairs kitchen area went off without a hitch. Some time passed. Rachel waited quietly, growing more and more anxious with each passing minute. As even more time passed, I can only imagine what was going through the poor girl's mind at the time. Whatever she was thinking, however, was quickly struck from her as an ear-shattering scream rang out from downstairs. There was no question that it was Amy's voice. Steeling herself against her own fear, Rachel rushed out of the room to help her friend. She saw nothing out in the hall, not even by the radio room as she passed by. As if it had heard its cue, it hissed at her. When she reached the top of the stairs, she heard a sound from behind her that made her blood turn to ice. The radio in the spare room hissed once again. It was like a sibilant voice announcing the approach of yet another presence in the hall. Terror lanced through Rachel, but she could not bring herself to look behind her, for surely someone or something besides her had passed by the radio room. Not waiting to encounter whatever presence was behind her, Rachel flew down the stairs as fast as she could. It was then that she heard the sound of footsteps behind her. Reaching the bottom of the stairs, she ran to the kitchen, focusing her thoughts on her friend. Whoever or whatever was following her would have to wait. It was at this point in the story that I must point out that there was no detail given about what was chasing Rachel. Whatever it was, from what I could glean, it gave up the chase by the time Rachel reached the kitchen. Amy was waiting for her. By the light of the moon, Rachel could see that her face was pale and bloodless. Rachel asked what was wrong, but Amy did not answer. The young girl simply stood there, her eyes wide and bulging, and her lips a thin white line on her face. It was only afterward that Rachel noticed a long, bloody gash on the inside of her friend's forearm. It started at the wrist and traveled up her arm and stopped at the elbow. Blood was pooling on the floor at Amy's feet. Stirred by the commotion, Amy's parents rushed downstairs to check on the two girls. After tending to their injured daughter, they demanded to know what had happened, and Rachel told them in earnest. She told them that Amy had screamed and that she had come downstairs to find her in her current state. Soon after, a call was made to Rachel's parents. It was time for her to go home. As they waited with Rachel in the kitchen, she asked her friend's parents what had happened to her. They assured her that everything was fine. Amy had simply injured herself on a broken drinking glass. The woman who provided the story insisted to me that the glass, while indeed broken, showed no signs it had ever been touched, let alone used to slice open her friend's forearm. This, of course, has led her to believe that something else had caused the injury. It should please you all to know that Amy survived the ordeal. Unfortunately, Rachel was never allowed to spend the night over her house again. All visits were strictly kept at daylight hours. After dark, Rachel was immediately sent home. When it became evident that no adult was going to tell her why she couldn't spend the night, she asked her friend to explain. The only answer Amy gave was that she was not allowed over at night anymore. What happened that night? Was Rachel a rare witness to the supernatural? And why was she not allowed to spend the night anymore? What were Amy's parents hiding from her best friend? More importantly, what really happened to Amy? I'm not asking you, dear viewer, to believe in the supernatural, only to keep an open mind. Do not surrender to paranoia, but question the world around you even when others tell you everything is no.